What's going on, people? Welcome to 137 Works, and this is one of the first beats that I ever made in this new kind of generation of beat making that I've been into. Stick around if that sounds interesting, you want to find out how I made it. As I said, this is among the first of my attempts at beat making in this modern kind of last year or so. I've made beats and little sample things here and there, but on this last little turn of my music making path that I've been on the last year and a half or so, this was basically one of the first. Context, it's now January 2025. It wasn't until January 2024, February 2024, when I first realized that we had a USB turntable downstairs and a couple of records and started messing with that. It wasn't until maybe March or April that I eventually got my actual Audio-Technica turntable. Over the last year or so, I've slowly been going into every charity shop on the East Coast and buying records to build up that big collection there that I have. Acquiring an LPD-8 Mark II and an Ovation Launch Key Mini Mark III and stuff like that. I've built up slowly my hardware collection, my all the records. I've switched to Serato sample. I've learned all these techniques about compression and how you'd mix things and stuff. But before all of that, a good month or two before all of that process started, when I first started looking into it and finding some YouTube channels to kind of get some tips from, on the 13th of December 2023 at about 6 o'clock in the evening, I created this project file, and this is as rudimentary as it gets for my technique at the time. Again, we're not talking about the 80s or the 70s when you had to physically cut tape or anything like that, but it is similar in a way that I'm not using Serato sample. I'm not chopping in the kind of more traditional way. I'm not even using SliceX. I'm physically cutting up the waveform on the timeline and copying and pasting, even for the stuttery bits here, like the you can see it in the drums there. And yeah, I just basically thought I would show how I used to make beats, with the aim and point being to basically say, it doesn't matter that I have 8 shells worth of records. It doesn't matter that I've got drum pads and a great record player and blah 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 blah. I did all this with a keyboard and mouse and a YouTube to MP3 downloader and some time, essentially, because the sample is fire. As you probably heard in that little intro, it's a very interesting Indian kind of Eastern sound to it, and as soon as I heard it, I just thought that was absolute fire. So let's, without any further ado, get into it by just showing off the original sample. So it's called Kolbatsu, I believe, and it's by Essen Egin. Again, I don't know where it's from or what, but back at this time I was starting to put it together because, again, I didn't have any records. I was trying to find YouTube playlists. I was trying to find anything that would be a way to get some sampled, some vinyl records, basically, without being able to, without having any vinyl. And so I found these obscure kind of random playlists on YouTube that were just old 70s funk from Czechoslovakia. I think one of them literally is an 80s Yugoslavian pop playlist. Just finding the most random stuff that was possible. Again, just trying to find the most obscure random stuff that nobody would have ever heard of, and in one of those playlists was this song. So if I play the first little bit, it's basically I take a couple of different sections and chop them up. So this is what the original sounded like. Yeah, pretty sure that's basically all I used from the record itself, but I did layer them, which is kind of interesting. So early on, before I probably even knew about layering samples and stuff like that, I probably knew it, I've learned, I'd heard the term over the years, but as I obviously know now that layering is a thing, I was actually layering different samples here, but from the same song. Interestingly enough, I think I just EQ'd them slightly differently and used different parts. So that's you've heard the original now. So basically the cut goes something like this. So that would be the intro and the first part of the first verse. I also just realized this, I'm so dumb when it comes to this stuff at the time that I was just tracking it out any kind of which way. So there's actually an uneven amount of bars as to what there should be. There's only 16 bars? 8 bars? Yeah, there's only 8 bars here, and then 4 bar kind of breakdown before the chorus, and then an 8 bar chorus. That's not how I structure a song at all today, but again, just, I guess, freestyling, trying to make it happen. The actual whole beat is only, just under 3 minutes? Well, just about 3 minutes, so, again, it's roughly if it's in the right time, but it just looks weird to me. So that's the intro and the first verse. Then yeah, there's a pre-chorus kind of breakdown thing where it does this. So again, not much different, but just you bring in this little bit extra. And again, I'll bring, obviously this is a full breakdown, so I'll walk through exactly what I'm doing here. And then the chorus goes something like this. Yeah, so just adding in an extra little bit here from a different part of the song. The bass line changes up here. It's actually, again, the drum pattern actually, funny enough, stays the same. And again, we'll go through all the details. But the drum pattern is actually the same, just chopped up in slightly different ways. But the bass line, I actually do add a second one for this little breakdown here. And it just, yeah, it's just adds a little bit of a change up just before we go into the chorus, which sounds something like this. And then towards the end, it just does a little stuttery kind of thing. And we go into the second verse from there. Then there's a breakdown, which again, just using the same choppy, stuttery technique, it does something like this. And then it all comes back in. Again, even now, like over a year later, it still puts a smile on my face hearing that. It's just such a great sample. It works perfectly. It's not exactly how I flipped it per se. Nothing to do with my talents. It's just the song and the sample works. It's like it was made for this kind of this style of music. So yeah, that's basically that. So the individual sounds, again, they're just, it's the sample chopped up into something like this. Chopped up again into like eighths and then fourths or whatever, quarter notes. We have like a high lead then that again it comes in from a later part of the song and it's just EQ'd a little bit. We have our bass line, which again is just a slightly variations, but just basic bass line essentially that goes along with the song. And the bass line is just a nexus. It's literally, it's a tip that I picked up clearly very early on, but just I've used it still more or less to this day. I've tried out different sounds, but if I'm stuck and I just need a bass line really quickly, nexus to the first initial saw wave sound that starts when you start up the program, just pull down the cutoff, adjust the resonance to taste, disable the delay and the reverb, and you get a lovely little, like not quite a sub bass, but a bass with a little extra character, that little fuzz from it being a saw wave cut down with the cutoff. So. Again, that's basically just the bass line from Give Me To Me Baby, like if you think about it, which is very funny. Then we have the drums, which are, again, a very early on, like I owe a lot to this little, again, it's an interesting story, so I'll just get into it. Basically, if you ever bought an issue of Computer Music Magazine within the last kind of 10, 15 years or so, they come with like these little CDs. They're essentially demo versions of the plugins that you can try out that have some limitations or whatever. And what this one is, it's called Beat Machine by Dope VST, and it's just a list of drum kits, essentially. All different types of ones, and I use this almost exclusively back when I first started making beats. And all it is literally just, it has a kick, a snare, a hi-hat, and then some kind of percussion. In this case, an open hi-hat. It's got a little mixer, a panner, and you can add on a couple of little effects here, but that's all it is. And it was so crucial to when I first started making beats, because I didn't have good, gritty, grimy drums. I had like loads of drums, but I mostly used to make dance music. So that's like the you know, all my sounds were like Vengeance sounds and X-Fair sounds or Transfer sounds, whatever. All different like dance kind of packs that I'd had. I didn't have that many hip-hop packs really. Obviously I have loads now. I've gone on a big spree and gotten a load of lo-fi kits and stuff, but back then this was basically my go-to. And funny enough, it's not even, there's no compression, there's no EQ, there's no nothing. Again, obviously the song isn't finished. I would have left this in its last state at some point towards the end of like 2023 and then planned on coming back to it, and I probably would have done all that. But as it is now, it sounds absolutely fine. And again, I'll go through the mixing and stuff like that in a bit, but just to show off, like, yeah, that's just the raw sound, and it's layered with a snare drum, I want to say, and that's all it is. It's just a simple little loop, and I just cut it up to what the track felt like it needed. Like, that's all it is. It's just this. Straightforward enough. That's as simple as you can get. It's just a basic, essentially a drum break, really. It's just a simple drum break, and it's just chopped to taste, essentially, with a crash here, just a simple go-to crash. And then the other part of the sample, which is this bit here, and it's just a little bit of, I think it's just like a droney sound going on in the background. So again, all from the same record, slightly EQ'd differently in volumes, adjusted and stuff like that. It just goes to show you don't need all the crazy effects. You don't need every lo-fi plugin out there ever to crush and grit up your sound and stuff like that. A good sample and knowing what you're doing, even a little bit. Again, this is back when I first started. I didn't know what I was doing that much, but to be fair, but all in all, when this song is playing, again, this is all in my opinion, of course, if I could be so bold. When this song is playing and everything's put together, it just fits and sounds good. Now, again, it does need to be mixed better and probably some EQs and stuff like that added on. But for what we have from so little, from one record, 3 different chops layered a little bit, a basic drum kit, a basic bass, and a crash, and you get something like this. Again, it's all in the sample. The sample is just absolute fire. And all that's on it is, if we go through compressor, a filter, just to take out some of the low end, I assume. Same thing, compressor, filter, chorus, and reverb on this one, so. Just add a little extra spice, not a load. Again, not like, not destroying it, just like tastefully applied. A compressor on the bass line, a filter and a compressor on this part of the sample. And yeah, the VPS filter would just be an EQ taking out the low end on the crash, the high end on the bass, the low end on the samples to varying degrees and stuff like that. And that's literally all it is. That's all it is. There's not, again, as I said, there's not even anything on the drums. There's no compression, there's no EQ. Not yet, anyway. Again, as I'm sure if I'd gotten around to finish this, or if I get around to finishing it, I might just mess with that and, see if it fits or whatever. Even on the master channel, so you've got Edison from where I dragged in the sample to cut it up, but on the channel you can see everything's deselected. So this is when I was very early on kind of demoing the different plugins that are on my master channel still to this day, and I do plan on doing a video walking through that. It's more or less these, and I'll go into more details in the separate video. It's just like you can see I was demoing the different sounds, but I decided at some point that I liked it without them. So again, it's just the sample. The sample is the king. So it doesn't, again, as I keep saying, it doesn't matter if you've got all them records. If there's no good samples on them, it's useless. It doesn't matter if you've got the best drum pads or the best record player or the best whatever equipment. If the samples that you're using aren't any good, they don't contribute to a good song. And so yeah, that's basically that. I think I just wanted to make this quick video to show off this little thing that I was just randomly clicking on songs in my kind of project folder, and this one opened up, and like, again, it's called Sample the Beat. This is how early it was. I didn't even give it time. I was still making so much non-sampled music that calling this sampled beat was enough to make me know which one it was, apparently. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, that's that one, because it's the sample beat, as opposed to the dead mousey progressive stuff or whatever, like, you know what I mean? I just think that's mad. But yeah, just I wanted to share a little bit about the weird backstory to this little project that I found, and to show some of the techniques and what you can do, even as a novice and a beginner in this kind of genre or whatever, to get a lot out of not a lot, if that makes sense. Like, to just kind of, get a cool sounding little beat, 3-minute beat. That's all it is. It's got a fade out. I could put that out now as a 3-minute beat on a beat tape and be happy with it. Again, I would like to fix it up and maybe just see if it could use a little more. But for what we have, for how little we used, it blows my mind. And again, it's the point of today's video is just, it doesn't matter that you have got the biggest, you can have the world's biggest studio with the 50 grand, 100 grand worth of equipment, £1 million worth of equipment, without a bit of knowledge, a bit knowing what you're doing, and good basic sounds and samples to work with. That's all irrelevant. It all happens in the box, in the song. It all happens on 8 tracks, and that's including including the volume, like that, the volume automation, like 7 tracks worth of stuff, and you've got a track that sounds as full as this does. And I just think that's crazy. But yeah, at the risk of repeating myself now, because I feel like you've gotten the point, I will wrap it up there and just let the song play out to end the video. If you enjoyed it, please do leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new here. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.